I'm Liv. I'm a nutritionist and intuitive eating counselor with ADHD, and I work with people with ADHD all around improving their nutrition in a way that supports their ADHD as well as hormones, but in a way that also supports their relationship with food through intuitive eating. And in my last video that I made probably about 6 weeks ago, I talked about why it's so hard to motivate yourself to eat with ADHD, not just eating healthy, but eating in general. Even though it's something we have to do every day, all the time, it can be really difficult for neurodivergent folks. So we got into the why behind that to get a better understanding of why that happens. So check that out if you haven't watched it yet. Like and subscribe if you haven't liked and subscribed yet. And then in this video, we're going to get more into the strategies for how to improve motivation to eat with ADHD. It's not so much just how to improve motivation to eat with ADHD, but talking about skills and strategies to be able to eat more regularly with ADHD, eating in ways that make you feel good, make your brain and body feel better, and that overall reduce the amount of stress that you're experiencing, not adding to it, because there is no opting out of eating, unfortunately. It really is something that we have to do every day, forever. So finding ways to embrace that and reducing the amount of stress and work it is for us is really essential, and that's what this channel is all about. So if you haven't yet, like and subscribe. Anyways, this video, just making sure it's recording. Yes. So this one is going to be around the first strategy for improving motivation to eat with ADHD and improving just your ability to eat regularly with ADHD. And that is going to be all around improving your access to food. So this is usually where I will start off with clients. There's so much work that we can do and so many ways to intervene in their eating patterns and behaviors. So just generally stepping back and seeing how we can improve access to nutritious foods, which basically means reducing barriers to eating in ways that make your brain and body feel good, that are also giving you dopamine and satisfying. You're going to be motivated to continue to feed yourself in that way. So just to summarize the last video, people with ADHD may have a really hard time with motivation to eat because of our different brain chemistry. Just being neurodivergent makes things that are seen as very normal and straightforward for neurotypical people. It's a lot harder for us just because our brain is wired differently and our society generally does not support that. Because of that, we're often in a state of overwhelm and burnout, so we just don't have the energy often to cook, especially every day, and get the groceries and clean up and decide what to eat. There's actually a lot of steps involved in eating. It's not straightforward at all. We often have a harder time recognizing hunger cues and fullness cues as well, because we generally have less interoceptive awareness than neurotypical people. This just refers to our ability to recognize our body's needs and be able to respond to that. But if you don't know when you're hungry, it makes eating a lot harder. Same with fullness. If you can't really tune into when you're full, it makes knowing when to stop eating a lot harder as well. It's really easy to get caught in a vicious cycle with both of those, a binge and restriction eating pattern, which I will probably make a video about as well, because that is a huge pattern that I see in people with ADHD and not talked about a lot. Decision fatigue over what to eat. There's so many options for what to eat, and it is actually a lot of work to decide what to eat, and can result in decision paralysis, where we just go into a freeze and don't know what to eat. So end up either just not eating or eating something quick because it is convenient and accessible, but ultimately doesn't give us the nutrients we need and doesn't really give us the energy or support our brain power in the way that we need it to. Sensory issues with food, very common in folks with ADHD, just a huge barrier to eating as well. If you have an issue with certain textures or smells or something like that, the higher instances of allergies and intolerances and gut conditions in folks with ADHD, all of these really add up on their own and collectively really add up and just make eating so much harder for us and add a huge challenge to our life, and that can just really reduce our motivation to eat. Be able to do that every day, especially in ways that make us feel good and give our brain and bodies the energy it needs. Anyways, getting into today's first strategy, improving access. This is really where I start off with a lot of clients, just finding where there are the biggest barriers to eating regularly. It doesn't have to be a healthy, balanced meal at all times, but just finding ways to improve access to foods that are going to make you feel better, that are going to have higher nutrition, but also that you're going to enjoy eating. You actually will eat those. I find working with neurodivergent people and just like myself, we do need structure, but it is a very gray line depending on the person where structure can be something that helps us thrive or can just add too much rigidity and be something that holds us back and actually prevents us from moving forward and becomes just like more of a barrier and a challenge, which we don't need. I find this approach has worked pretty well because it does give you that structure. It does introduce structure into how to eat and improve access to food, but it's also a pretty flexible and fluid approach, and you can really make it work for you. So it's not anything super profound. It's just organizing what you're eating into 3 different levels, or just thinking about approaching what you're eating through 3 different levels. So this is going to be based on the energy you have, your capacity, what foods you physically have access to in that moment, maybe what you feel like eating. It really is going to be a little bit different for every person, but essentially level 1 is going to be for when you do not have a lot of capacity and or time, brain power to put foods together. So level 1 is just going to be essentially your goal is to give your body fuel to continue on to do what you need to do, eventually get to your next meal. So it's going to be really basic things. I like to think of it as harm reduction, because not eating for a really long time, which is very common in folks with ADHD, going the whole day without eating, without even knowing you're doing that, is very common. And if you do that a lot, that's really bad for your body, and it's going to make your ADHD symptoms so much worse. Improving access to food and doing that through 3 different levels based on what your capacity is at is one way of interrupting that pattern of going the whole day or too long without eating. Say you are just starting your neurodivergent nutrition journey and you do know that you want to eat a lot healthier, or just give yourself access to foods that make you feel better and have more nutrition, which can be really overwhelming. So I do recommend starting small and recognizing that you have your whole life to do this. So just where you can, really take pressure off where you can, because pressure can be something that pushes us too much and adds a lot of stress, and often more stress is not what we need. Level 1 food would be just something really basic. Ideally, we want to have protein and a carbohydrate, or have 2 of the macro groups, so protein and carb, or a fat, fiber, and carb, that kind of thing. But I really do like working with proteins and carbs, because carbs are going to give your body and brain that immediate energy, and then protein is going to help your body and brain use that energy for a much longer amount of time. That's why it's good to have protein and carbohydrates together whenever you can. So say instead of just having a bagel, that would just be pretty much carbs, having a bagel with peanut butter, there's going to be some protein and healthy fats and minerals in the peanut butter. With the carbs, all of the protein, fats, minerals, and whatever else is in the peanut butter, that is going to help your body use the energy from the carbs for over a much longer amount of time, a more sustained amount of time. Whereas if you just have a bagel on its own, then your body is going to use up that energy really quickly, and your blood sugar is going to spike and then crash again, and you'll be back at where you were before you ate, because your body used that energy so fast. Hi, I'm just editing this, and while I was filming that, I forgot that bagels randomly have a lot of protein in them. They have 9 grams, which is unexpected and great. So that was a bad example, but maybe just like a slice of white bread or crackers, or chips, just a carb without a lot of protein. Bagels do have protein, so you could actually just have a bagel on its own, and that would be great. But also, adding more protein is almost always good. So a bagel with peanut butter would still be a good thing to have. Level 1 is basically really basic things that you can make really quickly that are a lot lower effort too. Another example of a level 1 that I think of for myself would be something that I could heat up in the microwave. So maybe frozen edamame, putting a bit of water with that, and then heating that up in the microwave, because that's a really good source of protein and fiber, and minerals and vitamins. And then having that with a fried egg, which will take under 5 minutes to make, and a slice of toast from my freezer. All level 1 foods should take between 5 to 10 minutes to put together. Ideally under 5 minutes, but if you're making a meal versus a snack, the time will differ. So if you can, even just writing down and putting on your fridge level 1 snacks and meals that you can make really fast, that don't require a lot of brain power, foods that you often keep around your house anyways. And then the next level would be level 2. So things that are a little bit more effort than level 1. So maybe take between 20 minutes to 30 minutes to make. I would say level 2 is meals that you can make within under half an hour, that you are pretty familiar on making. So it's going to be a lot of comfort foods. But again, you really want to be working with protein and carbs, at least having 2 macronutrient groups, just so your body uses the energy more efficiently and is able to use it for a longer amount of time than if you were to just have, say, noodles on their own, having noodles with edamame on the side, or a boiled or fried egg, or a tin of tuna, something like that. So I guess those would fall between level 1 and 2, but level 2 would just be things that take a little bit more amount of time to make, but that you are familiar with making. And then level 3, anything that falls into level 3 would be probably more than half an hour to make. So it's actually like you're cooking. That might be a little bit more intimidating to make. Maybe trying a new recipe, that would fall into the level 3. If you like to batch meals at all, that would probably be level 3, just stuff that's going to take more time, but is eventually, ideally, going to make enough so that you can have some over the next few days and then complete that cycle. So it's already made, so it becomes a level 1 group. For example, I make a bunch of chili that takes me about 45 minutes to make. There's a lot of ingredients. There's beef, there's beans, there's veggies, there's spices, broth, and stuff. So it's not hard to make, but it's not like I can make it like that, like a banana and peanut butter kind of thing. But I'm gonna make enough so it'll be in my fridge for a few days. So if and when I feel like it, I can have a bowl and just heat it up in the microwave, and that actually becomes a level 1 type of food. And not everyone likes to do that. I feel like batch meal prep sometimes really works for me. I don't even like the term meal prep because I feel like it's associated with a very rigid, specific way of eating that is kind of gross because you're eating the same thing for 4 or 5 days in a row. But when I say meal prep, I more just mean making a big batch of chili or soup or a pasta, something that I'm excited to eat and that I'm going to enjoy eating and that I have for at least probably 3 meals. Sometimes I'm going to freeze it and have that later. I feel like stews and chilies freeze a little bit better than pastas. And a lot of this is going to be very experimental too because everyone is different, especially every neurodivergent person is very different and has different things that are going to really help you thrive and succeed, and different challenges that are going to be really challenging and going to take effort to work with and find alternative ways to work with. I'm so glad it's still recording. That would be what I mean by the 3 levels of access. Just to simplify it, we really just want to be removing barriers that are preventing you from eating regularly, categorizing what you're eating into 3 different categories based on what your capacity is at is a really good way of doing that because it is taking into account your brain and body and what you're going through that day. I find it's also a really great thing to introduce into, if you track your menstrual cycle, if you have a menstrual cycle, these 3 different levels based on where you're at in your menstrual cycle. You'll probably be relying on certain levels more at different points in your cycle. So I know during my luteal phase, a week or so before my period, my energy levels are much lower, my mood is much lower, my ADHD is a lot worse. So I'm probably going to be relying more so on level 1 and 2 foods, and maybe even during my follicular phase, right after my period. Between that and ovulation, I'll make a big meal and freeze a bunch of it and then have that during my luteal phase or period. Using your menstrual cycle with the 3 different food levels is a really great idea because your menstrual cycle is kind of a built-in energy scale for yourself, your personal built-in energy scale, if you will, and it is a really good way to track and assess when your energy levels and mood and capacity are going to be lower and higher. Bringing the 3 levels in and working with that can be also really helpful. If this is all new to you, I would recommend just starting at the beginning, getting a piece of paper and writing down level 1 foods, level 2 foods, and level 3 foods, putting that on your fridge, and then just starting from there and getting a better idea of the meals that you are comfortable making and that make you feel good, and then getting in the pattern of coming back to that, setting that foundation, and then gradually introducing more level 3 foods the more you build on that foundation and get familiar and comfortable with eating. Also, just a reminder that this all does take time. The food system that we've grown up in and exist in has a lot of really horrible, not neurodivergent friendly diet culture related messaging, and a lot of that is really hard to unlearn and can just make eating a lot more challenging than it should be. Definitely when you can, please remember to have self-compassion for yourself. Remember that you are doing your best. You're living in a world that was not designed with your brain in mind. And just also remembering that your eating patterns and how you nourish yourself, how you're eating, how you're accessing food, not to be overwhelming, but you do have to do that for the rest of your life. So it is always something that you can work on and improve on, and just because you're having a really hard time with it right now doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be this way forever. So I hope that was helpful. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much to everyone who commented on the first video and all the little clips I shared throughout social media from there, supporting it, saying that it resonates, that it's helpful. That is so helpful for me because I do have a really hard time speaking to the camera because it feels like I'm speaking to the void, but it actually doesn't anymore because you commented that, and I know that people are interested in what I have to say. So thank you so much. And if you haven't, please like and subscribe because that really does help. Thank you so much for watching, and I will be back. I'm not sure when. I'm going to aim to be back with another video in much less time than the time between this one and the last. Thanks. Bye.